though thousands more prisoners remain in custody as the conflict continues. The South African government has officially lodged a complaint with the World Trade Organization regarding new environmental regulations recently implemented by the European Union. Known as the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, the policy imposes taxes on carbon-intensive imports like steel and aluminium. South Africa argues that these regulations unfairly penalize developing nations that rely on traditional energy sources and lack the capital to immediately transition to green technology. Trade Minister Ibrahim Patel stated that the measures amount to green protectionism, and threaten thousands of jobs in South African manufacturing sector. The EU has defended the policy, asserting it is a necessary tool to meet global climate goals and prevent companies from moving production to countries with weaker environmental laws. This dispute highlights the growing tension between international climate action and the economic realities of the global South, with several other nations expected to join South Africa's challenge in the coming weeks. New government data from Tokyo shows that Japan's population has declined by its largest margin since record-keeping began, dropping by over 800,000 people in the last year. The Ministry of Internal Affairs reported that the numbers of deaths significantly outpaced the numbers of births, reflecting a deepening demographic crisis in the world's fourth largest economy. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has described the trend as a national emergency and has pledged to implement new subsidies for child care and incentives for young people to start families. However, social experts point out that high living costs and a rigid work culture remains significant barriers to birth rate growth. The shrinking workforce is also putting immense pressure on Japan's healthcare
Nivea Dry Deo with 72-hour derma active protection.
Laudetur Jesus Christus, praised be Jesus Christ. Welcome to this live-streamed broadcast of Pope Leo XIV's meeting with authorities, representatives of civil society and the diplomatic corps at the presidential palace in Yaoundé, the capital city of Cameroon, where the Pope arrived today, the 15th of April 2026. So from wherever you are joining us, I am Linda Vordoni, and I would like to welcome you to this live broadcast. Some of you may be joining us through various Vatican media channels, perhaps the Vatican News app or the Radio Vaticana app, the Vatican News web portal, or Vatican News English YouTube channel, or our Facebook live feed. And so to all of you also joining us through EWTN TV, Sultan Light TV, Shalom World TV, Atmar Dashan TV, Catholic Faith Network in America, Madha TV, and to all of you joining us through radio stations, among whom are listeners of Radio Maria England, Luminous Radio India, Radio Maria Papua New Guinea and other internet sites throughout the world. A very warm welcome to you. Welcome to you all. And a most warm welcome to those of you joining through our dedicated American Sign Language broadcast, made possible with the help of our friends at Deaf Catholic Youth Initiative for the Americas. It'll be my pleasure to be with you today and provide you with the English language translation of Pope Leo's words and of the words of those participating in this event. So the event, as I mentioned, is Pope Leo's meeting with authorities, representatives of civil society and the diplomatic corps at the presidential palace of Yaoundé, the capital city of Cameroon, where he arrived just a short while ago. We see the papal entourage entering the presidential palace. The Vatican Foreign Minister, the Secretary for Relations with State, Paul Richard Gallagher, Cardinal Tagle, taking their seats as they prepare to listen first to the Cameroonian President Paul Biya's address of welcome to Pope Leo XIV, and then, of course, to listen to what the Pope has to say at the beginning of this second leg of his apostolic journey to the African continent. He arrived this afternoon, Wednesday, the 15th of April, after having departed from the airport in Algiers, Algeria, where he kicked off his apostolic journey. That's taking him to 4 African nations: Algeria, Cameroon, where he is now, and then on to Angola from the 18th to the 21st, and finally to Equatorial Guinea from the 21st to the 23rd of April. Overwhelming Muslim country where Catholics are a tiny minority. To promote that kind of image, he said, is something which the world needs to hear today. And here in Cameroon, he's also expected to speak of peace, as it is a country where conflict has been simmering for a decade now. In the north, there are various separatist groups who have been fighting for the recognition of a separate country for the Anglophone community. Actually, just yesterday, the separatist groups announced a pause in hostilities in a sign of respect for the arrival of Pope Leo and with the will to create a safe situation for all those who will be attending his meeting in Bamenda, in those regions, a meeting for peace. Those present at the meeting are standing to welcome Pope Leo XIV as he makes his way to one of the chairs set up in this presidential palace of Yaoundé. And where he will be addressed by the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, who at 93 years old is the world's oldest president. Biya himself is a Catholic. He secured an 8th term in office in an election last October.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République, Sa Sainteté le Pape Léon XIV, Madame la Première Dame,
Pope Leo XIV.
La rencontre du Saint-Père avec
This
les
meeting
autorités, la société civile et le corps
to
diplomatique
authorities,
se déroulera autour de deux
civil
principales
society and
articulations,
to
à
the
savoir,
diplomatic corps is about
dans
to
un
take
premier
place.
temps, le discours de son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République. La deuxième articulation de la rencontre
We
sera
see
le
the Pope
discours du chef de l'État
seated in
de
the
la
center
République
between Paul Biya, the president,
Excellences,
and
Mesdames et Messieurs,
his wife.
j'annonce le discours
the First
de son
Lady.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République du Cameroun.
Pope Leo has just met privately with the president and his family in a closed-door encounter. And we are expecting the president to deliver his address before the Pope. So Cameroon is a francophone country with an Anglophone minority, and many different ethnic realities, different languages, different cultures. Here's Paul Biya. It is with most immense joy that I welcome you on this occasion of this historic visit, the fourth by a sovereign pontiff to Cameroonian soil. The Cameroonian people rejoice at your visit and appreciate the rare privilege that is theirs in receiving your holiness during your first tour of Africa, only a few months after your accession to the throne of Saint Peter. They are particularly grateful to you for this. On their behalf, I would like to extend to you, as well as to the delegation accompanying you, a warm welcome and a pleasant stay in our country. Most Holy Father, your apostolic journey to Cameroon takes place in a particularly difficult international context. Indeed, the world is shaken by increasingly serious crises and conflicts that spread death and devastation. States are grappling with growing economic difficulties. Poverty is spreading. Suffering afflicts entire peoples. Anxiety and doubt grip hearts. Your Holiness, In this looming chaos, the message of peace and harmony that you bring resonates with particular strength in our hearts, like a refreshing and life-giving spring. It quenches the thirst for harmony that haunts us. This message awakens within us a feeling that humanity, swept away by the whirlwind of our ambitions, pretensions, hatreds and intolerance, had begun to lose sight of. That feeling is hope. Yes, Your Holiness. Humanity desperately needs hope. Hope for a new world. A world in which the path of dialogue would replace the voice of arms. A world in which the immense resources devoted to war would be used to promote the well-being of peoples. From the very beginning of your pontificate, you have chosen to be the bearer of this message. We are aware that this is not an easy role. The path you have chosen is indeed steep and full of obstacles. But I know that you will not stop. I know that you will not give up. Your exemplary journey, the strength of your convictions, and the faith that inspires you, give me that assurance. Most Holy Father, the world needs the message of peace, justice, tolerance, forgiveness, and love that you bring. The religious fervor of the populations you will meet in Bamenda, Douala and Yaoundé will allow you to appreciate the attachment of the entire Cameroonian people to these values. We have drawn inspiration from them with success in seeking solutions to the crises our country has faced in recent years. Your Holiness, Cameroon is well known for its religious tolerance. Several religions coexist peacefully in our country, of which we are rightly proud. Relations between Cameroon and the Catholic Church are long-standing. They're marked by trust and cordiality. We welcome the valuable contribution of the Catholic Church to the development of important sectors of our country's social life, such as health and education. We stand ready to work towards strengthening these relations. The visit you begin today will certainly contribute significantly to this. Thank you for your kind attention. Paul Biya there, the President of Cameroon. And now we will listen to Pope Leo XIV.
Léon XIV.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, distinguished authorities, members of the diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for the warm reception I have received and for the words of welcome addressed to me. It is with deep joy that I find myself in Cameroon, often described as Africa in miniature. Because of the richness of its lands, cultures, languages, and traditions. This variety is not weakness, but a treasure. It constitutes a promise of fraternity and a solid foundation for building lasting peace. I come among you as a shepherd. I come among you as a shepherd and as a servant of dialogue, fraternity, and peace. My apologies to all those who are following our feed. There has been an interruption in the transmission of the signal. We're awaiting the signal to reappear. The Pope was addressing authorities and representatives of civil society and the diplomatic corps in Yaoundé's presidential palace shortly after his arrival in the country on the second leg of his pilgrimage to the African continent, a pilgrimage that has taken him to Algeria and will continue in Cameroon and then in Angola and Equatorial Guinea. Of course, you can follow our coverage of the entire pilgrimage on all of our platforms, on our social media platforms, on our website, and on the YouTube channel that Vatican Radio streams live on. As we await the return of the signal from Yaoundé's presidential palace, just a few words about Cameroon, the second country visited by Pope Leo XIV in his third apostolic journey abroad. Cameroon is ruled by President Paul Biya, who is the world's oldest president. He's 93 years old, and he just secured an 8th term in office in an election last October. Cameroon was a German colony until it was split between Britain and France after World War I. It is an oil and cocoa producing country, and it faces many challenges. As I was mentioning earlier, there is a separatist movement in the west of the country where Anglophone speakers feel marginalized by the Francophone government, and they have been fighting for a decade now for a state which they call Ambazonia. However, just yesterday, they announced a pause of hostilities for the Pope's visit. In a statement, they announced a temporary cessation of fighting. The statement was released by the Unity Alliance, which groups the Anglophone groups together, and it marks a rare moment of de-escalation in a conflict that has ravaged the country's northwest and southwest regions. For years, this fight for an independent state, which the separatists called Ambazonia, has led to widespread violence, displacement, and a severe humanitarian crisis affecting millions of people. In their statement, the separatists said that the decision is based on responsibility, restraint, and respect for human dignity, and that it aims to create a safe corridor and atmosphere for the Pope's arrival and activities. Now, about 50% of Cameroonians are Catholic. There are more than 280 million Catholics in Africa. They represent more than 20% of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. And in 3 of these nations that the Pope is visiting, Cameroon, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea, more than half of the population identify as Catholic. In contrast to the first nation of his pilgrimage, Algeria, which is a Muslim majority nation. After his address to the authorities here in Yaoundé's presidential palace, the Pope will visit an orphanage in Yaoundé. It's called the Ngul Dzamba Orphanage, where dozens of children are from difficult backgrounds are looked after by some Catholic nuns. They are also provided with an education at the attached school, and they too are waiting to greet the Pope, who will travel from the presidential palace to the orphanage before retiring for the night at the Nunciatura. Tomorrow morning he will be setting off to Bamenda in the west of the country, and there he will hold a meeting for peace. Our correspondents on the ground have been telling us that Cameroonians are looking forward to hearing his words of encouragement for fraternity, because they say, although they're not all Catholic, he is widely seen as a spiritual leader rather than as a politician, and that's what they're looking forward to seeing and hearing. We may be getting the signal back. The Pope is continuing his discourse to the authorities and civil society.
La sécurité est une priorité, mais elle doit toujours exercer dans le respect des droits de l'homme, en unissant rigueur et grandeur d'âme, avec une attention particulière pour les plus vulnérables.
He's asking them to have a particular attention for the most vulnerable.
Écoutés et respectés. Lorsque la loi est un rempart contre l'arbitraire des plus riches et des plus forts.
Security, he says, is a priority, but it must always be exercised with respect for human rights.
Le premier témoignage se concrétise dans la collaboration entre les différentes
He's calling for collaboration between the various agencies and administrative levels of the state in the service of the people, especially of the poor.
Se réalise en unissant vos responsabilités institutionnelles et professionnelles à une conduite de vie.
This must be accomplished, the Pope says, by carrying out your institutional and professional responsibilities with integrity and upright conduct.
Il faut libérer les cœurs de cette soif.
Hearts must be set free from an idolatrous thirst for profit. True profit comes from the integral human development. That is, the balanced growth of all the aspects that make life on this earth a blessing. Cameroon possesses the human, cultural, and spiritual resources necessary to overcome trials and conflicts and move toward a future of stability and shared prosperity. The common effort in favor of dialogue, justice, and integral development form the wounds of the past into sources of renewal. As I have often mentioned, young people represent the hope of the country and of the Church. Their energy and creativity are priceless treasures. Of course, when unemployment and social exclusion persist, frustration can lead to violence. Investing in the education, training, and entrepreneurship of young people is therefore a strategic choice for peace. It is the only way to curb the outflow of wonderful talent to other parts of the world. It is also the only way to combat the scourges of drugs, prostitution, and apathy, which are devastating too many young lives in an increasingly dramatic way. Thankfully, young people in Cameroon possess a deep spirituality that still resists the homogenizing influence of the market. It is a source of energy that gives value to their dreams, which are rooted in the prophecies that nourish their prayers and their hearts. When they are not twisted by the poison of fundamentalism, religious traditions inspire prophets of peace, justice, forgiveness, and solidarity. By fostering interreligious dialogue and involving religious leaders in initiatives of mediation and reconciliation, politics and diplomacy can draw upon moral forces capable of easing tensions, preventing extremism, and promoting a culture of mutual esteem and respect. Through her efforts in education, healthcare, and charity, the Catholic Church in Cameroon desires to continue serving all citizens without distinction. The Church also wishes to work in good faith with civil authorities and all those involved in efforts to promote human dignity and reconciliation. Where possible, the Church intends to facilitate cooperation with other countries and strengthen ties between Cameroonians around the world and their communities of origin. May God bless Cameroon. Assist its leaders, guide civil society, enlighten the work of the diplomatic corps, and grant the entire Cameroonian people, Christians and non-Christians, political leaders and citizens, the grace to welcome the kingdom of God and so build together a future of justice and peace. Pope Leo XIV there addressing the president and diplomats and civil society at Yaoundé's presidential palace. Unfortunately, the signal made a skip and a jump there, but you can read Pope Leo's full discourse on vaticannews.va. Pope Leo is now going to be moving on to the orphanage in Yaoundé, where the nuns that run the orphanage and the children are waiting to welcome him.
I need more than that.
So the Pope there was calling on Cameroonians to make the most of their diversity, which he said is a rich treasure, and encouraging leaders to invest in young people in Cameroon, whom he said have a deep spirituality and who are the ones who will be able to bring the country forward to a future of peace. But to read that full discourse, please go to Vatican.va or to vaticannews.va, where you can read the Pope's words to the authorities, civil society and the diplomatic corps in Yaoundé on the first day of his apostolic visit to Cameroon, where he will be staying until the 18th. Tomorrow, Thursday, he'll be traveling to Bamenda in the north west of the country, where he will be meeting with representatives of different cultural realities, of different languages, and he will be holding a meeting for peace. So to all of you, thank you for joining us. Thanks to our sound engineer and our audio coordinators, our media partners, EWTN TV, Sultan Light TV, Shalom World TV, Atmar Dashan TV, Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network in America, Radio Maria England, Luminous Radio India, Radio Maria Papua New Guinea, who made this broadcast possible. And thank you for all of you for joining us. Laudetur Jesus Christus, praised be Jesus Christ.
Americans be
Well, I
prepared
think
for
you could
this
say
war
it
to last
both.
for?
It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days. When you think about it, it's incredible. We wiped out a big Navy, very powerful Navy. You know, these were ships, these were serious ships. These were ships that you buy when you want to win battles. They're all on the bottom floor. The sailors are all running off the ships. They refuse to get on the ships. The Air Force is gone. Everything's gone. The missiles are down to a trickle. The drones are down to probably 25%, and they'll soon be down to nothing. We'll have where they manufactured the drones are under fire as we speak. They're being hit. So the rest is going to be a determination as to my attitude, along with the people in the Trump administration, what we want to do. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Can I ask you, you mentioned you were going to waive certain additional oil waivers or sanctions. Can you talk a little bit more about that and address in particular?
Well, we're looking to keep the oil prices down. We went artificially up because of this excursion into a very positive thing. I mean, this was an excursion that a lot of people wouldn't have done. I knew oil prices would go up if I did this, and they've gone up probably less than I thought they'd go up. But I don't think anybody thought we were going to be this quickly successful. This was a military success, the likes of which people haven't seen. We have the best military. We have the best equipment. We have, I believe, the best generals. We have the best. And this went very quickly. We talked about that with President Putin. He was very impressed with what he saw because nobody's ever seen anything quite like it. You know, Iran was a very powerful military country with all of the missiles. Now, you had the double attack. You had the original attack with us and Israel, and that knocked them for a loop. Then you had the B-2 bombers, which took out their nuclear capability, and they would have
policy. It's about changing the process. In other words, getting rid of the filibuster to get there.
So in order to get it, you're going to need Democrat votes. And what we're saying is the Save America, not the SAVE Act, which nobody knew what it was, the Save America Act, the Save America Act. And that's voter ID. We want voter ID. We want to be able to see a picture of the voter. We want to be able to see that the voter is legitimate. We want, very importantly, confirmation that this voter is a citizen of the United States of America, and we want no mail-in ballot scams. So we have exception, gender, mutilization of our children. We don't want it's mutilization of our children, and we don't want that. So we added those two things. That's the 5 points. We have 5 very good points. It polls at 86% with Democrats. Think of that. The overall vote is 86%. With Republicans, it's 98%. And the only one opposed to it is a Democrat leadership because they cheat. They want to cheat. So we added those 2 points. We're going for the gold, and we're going to have to fight like hell. Now, certain things will happen. Certain things will take place. I'm here to do a great job for the country. But we don't have a country, if we're going to have elections that are so corrupt and so dishonest like we've witnessed over the last period of time. You know, as an example, virtually nobody has